So let's go ahead and step out to the OneDrive for Business Admin Center and explore some of these configuration options that we've discussed in this module. I've moseyed on over to the Office 365 Admin Center, and I'm going to scroll down and expand on the Admin Centers. And very similar to what you saw in the Teams environment, we have an Admin Center specifically for OneDrive. And you're going to see we have a few items on the left-hand side. And again, I'm not going to hit every one of these, but some of the main ones here. Obviously, for OneDrive, we want to be concerned about sharing. So we have some sharing capabilities or configuration options. So the first option is links. Choose the kind of link that's selected by default when users share items. The default is shareable, anyone with the link, which means no matter how you got the link, if you have access to the link, you can get access to the content. Internal, which means only people in your organization, or direct, where I specify what users are going to be able to open the content that's behind that link. If I go to advanced settings for shareable links, links must expire within this number of days. So I can have a link expire after 10 days or something. We have files, view, edit, and upload, or just view. We have folders, view, edit, and upload, or just view. And if we scroll down, we have the external sharing. Gives you an idea of the SharePoint versus the OneDrive, and it gives you the least permissions, which is only people in your organization, to the most permissions, which is anyone. So just a little visual as to what you have for options there. Then we go to advanced settings for external sharing. Allow or block sharing with people on specific domains, very similar to what I showed you in Teams. I don't have to open up everything to everyone. I can specify, I want to be able to allow domains to be able to view my content within OneDrive for Business. Well, what domains? Well, we already have Microsoft in there. Only allow these domains or block these domains. We'll go in there, we'll type in microtechpoint.com, and now these two domains we're allowing you can share content external to them. External users must accept sharing invitations using the same account that the invitations were sent to, so I can't email it back and forth. It has to be to the exact account, and let external users share items they don't own. That's a little bit more permissive than probably we want. And then some other settings: display to owners the names of people who viewed their files, so you can kind of keep an eye on who's looking at the content that I have in there. We'll go over to sync next, and you're going to see within here we have some options. Download the sync client. We want to make sure we always have the latest and greatest, so the synchronization process is going to be what it should be. The very first iteration of the OneDrive sync client was, to say the least, horrible. So I really got a bad taste in my mouth for OneDrive for Business. So I went over to Dropbox, and I'm kind of stuck with Dropbox now. Not in a bad way. I like it. I've been using it for years, and I love what it has to offer. But I have 3 or 4 tenants where I could get a ton of free space through my OneDrive for Business platform, but I'm very comfortable with what was going on. And the bad news is because I got that bad taste with that initial sync client. So make sure they always have, they being your clients, always have the latest and greatest. And here's another link to help fix any sync problems. By default, show the sync button on the OneDrive website to allow the synchronization. And we also can choose allow syncing only on PCs joined to specific domains. Enter each domain as a GUID. So you actually have to do some research to actually get the GUIDs for each of these. And we can block synchronization on Mac operating systems. And we can block syncing of specific file types. Maybe I don't want WMVs, AVIs, and MP3s. I can actually go in and block those file types from synchronization. So I'll go ahead and save these settings that we have here. We now move into storage. And in storage, we have a couple options here. Default storage is 1 terabyte. We can specify less or more. And then days to retain files in OneDrive after a user account is marked for deletion. So by default, it's 30 days. And what this does, it'll give someone 30 days, besides the original owner, someone else within the organization, to view that content and see if there's anything that we need to retain before we allow that information to be toasted. Device access, and we'll scroll back to the top. And one option is to control access based on network location. Allow access only from specific IP address locations, so we can actually drill in and get a little bit more specific about who can access our content. Control access from apps that can't enforce device-based restrictions. So we go into the mobile application management. These settings apply to the apps for Android and iOS, and deploy this policy. So I first turn it on, and then I go in and I check these boxes. Oh, from an iOS or Android, I don't want them to be able to back up app data. I don't want them to be able to print files, or I don't want them to be able to copy files and content within the files. So we can control what our users can do from their mobile devices. from using these options here. So next we have when a device is offline, the number of minutes to verify user access after. So after 90 minutes, re-verify, we have the correct user. The number of days to wipe app data. It's 720 days at this point. These are default settings, as I mentioned. You can bump them up or decrease them based on what you're looking for. And over in compliance options in here, we're going to see that we have auditing, search the audit log, DLPs, create a DLP, data loss prevention policy, retention, create a preservation policy, e-discovery, create an e-discovery case, and then alerts. Now, all these options here, although they're links from within the OneDrive for Business, any one of these will actually route me to the Security and Compliance Center, and we're going to talk about that later on in the course. So all of these options can be configured for OneDrive for Business, but it's actually going to route us to the Security and Compliance Center. And then we have notifications, and within here we have display device notifications to users when OneDrive files are shared with them. First off, it's turned on. We do want them to be notified. How do we want them to be notified? Notify them when other users invite additional external users to shared files. External users accept invitations to access these files. An anonymous access link is created or changed. Notice these were all on when I came in. So by default, the option is enabled and these three checkboxes are enabled. But as you know, you have the choice of deselecting these. If you're looking at ways to migrate content, we talked about a couple ways already. And here's another one that talks about the SharePoint migration tool. You can actually click on this, and if you do so, you have to agree to the terms of service and privacy policy. Then you have to install that tool. So we'll go back here, and you can see there's an introduction to the SharePoint migration tool, how to use the SharePoint tool, understanding permissions, some list templates, using JSON, and some other items here. So this is a site that you'll want to visit to get some additional information on how to use and download and access the SharePoint migration tool. And if you notice the link up here, you'll see that this is the location that you can locate this content. About the SharePoint migration tool, about Microsoft Fast Track, and about migration service providers. So you may want to just outsource the task of migrating all of your files into OneDrive for Business. In this module, we went through major topics regarding OneDrive for Business. First off, the OneDrive for Business implementation. Then we talked about the several components associated with OneDrive for Business. And then we looked at a couple different ways we can configure OneDrive for Business. One are the PowerShell commands, and the other is the GUI. In our next module, we're going to take a look at implementing Microsoft Flow.